Manderson.
Welcome back to Sports Tuesday. I am Steve Manderson. A very serious situation has occurred in college basketball last week, which involved the FBI. NCAA Division I college basketball is under investigation. There are several people in terms of bribery and fraud. 10 people were arrested last week. One of them, former NBA player, the man they call the Rifleman, Chuck Person, and one head coach, prestigious head coach at that, was fired, and we'll definitely talk about him. And my guest to talk about the whole scandal is no stranger to Sports Tuesday. He's been on before, and he is the CEO of Pre-PostGame Incorporated. He basically represents players in terms of guiding them up the right path in terms of their careers, and he's here to discuss what's going on here with this latest scandal. Let me bring on right now, let me welcome back Robert. How are you?
Madison? Fine yourself, sir. How you doing tonight?
Fine. This scandal, this is crazy. There are scandals. We've all witnessed scandals in college basketball or even in college football. But this one, in my opinion, takes the cake, in fact, to the point where it has involved the FBI, and there have already been 10 arrests and one major firing of a national championship-winning coach. And this is crazy. This is crazy. What is going on, Robert?
Well, for one, this is at the tip of the iceberg. So if you think this is bad, the reality is in sports and business, and that's one of our mantras, that sports is not a game, it's all business. This is the many things that I've been alluding to when I started pre-post-game regarding the so-called student athlete, the education, the business side, and how much revenue is actually generated. So just to go back into when you talk about why 10 people were arrested, and why the FBI is involved, what most people don't understand is that these universities are receiving state funds. They get money from the state and the government to provide education. They also pay the coach's salary. They pay a lot into what goes on onto the actual campus. But the reality is when you give these men, that money, and then that money changes hands to go somebody else, there's another big person that's involved that nobody's understanding, and it's the IRS. So in particular, when it comes to the 10 men that were arrested at this point based off of a financial advisor that literally got caught in it named Marty Blazer, who basically his situation was, and they said up to 3 years ago he didn't have any basketball contacts. But the reality is when he got involved with one or two people, when there's an opportunity to use a young man's or woman, if you will, in a sports business vulnerability about what they don't know, it's easy to basically point them in certain directions. So in essence, before I go any further, I think I spoke to you before that not only is this scandal something that's the tip of the iceberg, but I want to try to get into what we tabbed at pre-post game is what we call sports trafficking. It's just as prevalent and lucrative and dangerous as sex trafficking and human trafficking based off the athlete, their parents, the knowledge or lack thereof regarding making decisions in business, in particular when it comes to not just the NCAA, but a lot of these things happen and transpire in relationships, or what we call stage relationships, are built years before they actually even think about going to a school. And that direction or that thought process is usually navigated by someone else's best interest other than their own.
Yes, and to have Adidas involved in this scandal, the things that are going on in which high school kids are being bribed up to like $250,000 just to play for the school that Adidas represents in terms of merchandising and stuff, that is outrageous.
Well, what people don't realize is that even the amount of $250,000 and talking about Adidas, and while we're talking about Louisville, that's paid to the dollar, just like any other structure when it comes to the sports business. Each men's basketball player that attends Louisville, whether they're the starter or the 13th man, because in basketball you have 13 scholarships, each player brings in $1.4 million per year to that university. So once again, when they talk about, how you actually direct or guide these athletes and what these shoe companies are willing to invest, their return is much greater. But the reality is this as well, is that those same executives at Adidas can never walk into a room and have a real conversation and relate to those athletes or their families. They come from two different worlds. And so instead of doing what they're supposed to do the right way, they have found a group of men and women in some cases, and sometimes a family, to use or manipulate their thought process and their relationship with that kid in order to sway their position. Now, it's no secret that, the stigma of what you talk about an athlete in terms of being a jock or not knowing anything is not because the athlete's not capable of figuring out things themselves, but pretty much the systematic situation they put in, the institutionalized thought process that they put in, is what leads them to do certain things. You hear phrases such as trust the process or focus on the game, everything take care of itself. If you ever ask any athlete, young or old, what the process actually is, he can't actually tell you. I'm glad to say that actually pre-postgame, we just launched today, our enrollment process for our official sports business academy that goes from 6th grade to the time you retire as a pro to meet you where you are. So every level that you're at, you can actually learn about the business, to how it benefits you and why you should do things in your behalf versus the industry. So now we actually phrase it at, now there's a process that you can actually trust, because it's going to take you step by step on how to understand how the system has always been set up. So when you think this may be isolated to basketball, I'm here to tell you it's only the tip of the iceberg. Football, baseball, basketball, anything where monetary value and regarding where the simplest form or simplest thing to do is to basically gain a young man or woman's trust or their family's trust based on where they come from, for example, urban areas, and literally able to put a couple pennies in their pocket based on what it is. There are people out there that literally befriend these families and don't really represent themselves accordingly. They'll say they're friends of the family, not knowingly that they are connected to someone of a business situation, whether it's a financial advisor or a CPA or a sports agent. And literally, back in the day, they used to call, we used to talk about boosters, but the system is so much more sophisticated now. That's why I'm glad to be on the show, because in particular now, the runner, as we say, versus the mentor, a lot of guys use the term mentor. So what is a mentor? Mentor, in particular, when I'm a mentor, I do educational teaching. I teach character development about moving from one place to the next. I provide educational tools in regards to those things, but also help them explore and expand their ability in that sport. But not just about how they play, but how they, understand what it means to lose a game, how to continue to move forward, how to better yourself, how to not use drugs, how to stay away from peer pressure. These same guys that call themselves mentors are technically runners. All you ever see them doing is taking pictures of an athlete at a game. So no matter what game, they literally throwing arrows at the dart. And so what they do is, once they take those pictures and post them on social media, they will start going to other people, whether it's schools or other trainers or other people that basically want that young man's or that young woman's services, and they pretend to be a representative of them. Now, whether it's true or not, the way society is set up at this point, those things can lend that person to become ineligible if you're talking about the NCAA, or in general, we're talking about the pros. Now you start to get a false sense of who this kid really is based off the people that he's not really carrying himself around, but that's how those people go about doing their business. And no one's really ever been in the position or the place to actually be the voice for the player. That's what we do here at Pre-PostGame.
My thing, and I think the last time you were on the show, I brought it up, and I always bring this up in situations like this, the parents. Okay, in this kind of situation where tons of money are being thrown at their son, okay, don't the mother or father, even if, let's say, single parent situation, doesn't the mother tend to want to get a second opinion talk to her banker or her financial advisor or something to see if all of this is really on the up and up, because as a parent, you really don't want to put your son in such an awkward, embarrassing situation, especially in this case. This is crazy. I mean, why are the parents at times not really, I don't know what the word is,
involved?
More aware of what's going on, more involved, yes, more involved in situations like this?
So in particular, just to give you a little background from the NCAA standpoint, most kids or most young men or women that attend the NCAA for a scholarship purpose, if you will, it's by law that they are required to have the signature of the parent when they commit to a school if they're younger than 18 years old, meaning they're 17. Once that person is beyond the age of 18, the NCAA will immediately, a university will immediately tell you that, for example, say your son gets hurt, your daughter gets hurt, regarding their medical records. You can call the school and say, I'm the parent, but they'll tell you right away that you got to get that information from them. That's why I said sports is not a game, it's all business. This situation regarding the schools and why the parents aren't more involved is because literally the system is not in place to really want to empower the actual parent. The reality is once the kid gets to a campus or university, the coach or the mentor, the guy that's actually the runner, basically wants to circumvent the parent's responsibility and all of that. This thing is so complicated in many areas that the parent, even if you sat down and explained it to them, they don't know what's going on. Now, in particular, we're talking about money changing hands. A lot of times, most of the times, the parents are not even aware that the money is being exchanged or monetary value is being discussed regarding their son. Usually, what happens is that the parent might see the kid getting a lot of exposure on TV and the media, and the people are moving around, and then you got a trainer that says he's going to be there for him, and all of a sudden the trainer now is introducing him to this former other pro guy, and then this pro guy introduced to this guy he literally knows and worked out in the league for him, and then all of a sudden the kid is just happy to be around those people because that's what he assumes he wants to be at a certain point. But what happens at that point, that kid is just basically being sold off to the highest bidder. Hence, we talk about sports trafficking. So for a parent standpoint, they just happy to see that their kid is getting the accolades, the notoriety that they feel it deserve, but they don't understand really the magnitude of what's going on, and a lot of times it's too late.
Now, out of the 10 arrests, 4 of them were assistant coaches to their schools. Most notable, Chuck Person, who had a pretty good NBA career with the Indiana Pacers back in the day. He was the assistant head coach of Auburn, and is an alma mater. And the other coaches involved, Tony Bland from USC, Lamont Evans from Oklahoma State University, and Emmanuel Richardson from University of Arizona. Now, in their situations, they pretty much were like the middlemen in connection with the runner in that situation. Now, how much of a pay cut did these 4 gentlemen get in taking that risk and doing what they did?
Well, it's not really a risk and again, this is why I'm doing this show again tonight, and it's a blessing that, these things are where they are right now because without the actual NCAA being who they are, these things would never been allowed to happen. Now, one thing I want to be clear about as the players rep, again, so people that don't know, the players rep, which I'm personally hashtag CEO of my company, that everything that we do is in behalf of the players and the family's best interests alone. It's not for the industry, it's not for the league, it's not for anybody outside of who the family is. So whatever your best interest is, that's what we're going to say and do on your behalf because we understand without the player, there is no such thing as basketball, football, baseball, ESPN, NFL Network. There's no such thing as pre-postgame, no such thing as any of these universities, no such thing as March Madness and so forth. So in particular with these young men that got involved, again, once upon a time there was this thing called the booster, but now it became more, lucrative and also secretive by using the so-called coach, that how these young men became coaches at this level. A lot of times is like a show and prove type of thing. We talk about getting the kill. So you might start as a recruiting assistant or just someone who's a friend of the program, and then all of a sudden once the kid, behind closed doors and a handshake and a wink comes to that university, you now become a coach there. And now you talked about, you mentioned Chuck Person, his alma mater. But that's one of the main ways it works. As an alma mater, Chuck Person would sell the fact that he coached Kobe Bryant at one point, and he played under Phil Jackson or whatever it may be from there. So from a young man's standpoint that hopes to aspire to be Kobe one day, that's too easy. That's what they say, the proverbial phrase, taking candy from a baby. And that's what's wrong with the situation right here, because the reality is we know not only 1% in all these major sports revenue generators is only going to go pro. Without the other 99% of the participants, the operation won't work. So literally you got to sell the goods, if you will, to all these different families, to these kids, and they believe they can get to that certain point. And so now when you talk about the people that's literally at the end when it's time for these kids to make money, let me ask you a question, Mr. Manderson. Are you aware of, for example, the NBA or the NFL, what is the standard representation fee for a sports agent?
Actually, no, I don't.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you, that's the point. So when I say that, there's a reason for that, because literally when you're a young man or woman in particular, or kid that want to be in NFL or the NBA, it's never too early to understand the business you're trying to get into. If you're an architect, you're going to go to college and wait 3 months before you pick up a blueprint to read and see if you can do it or not. Or if you're a graphic designer, are you going to wait 3 months before you pick up a pen and see if you can draw or not? That's what these kids are actually being asked to do, and these families be pushed to wait till 4 months before they have this barrage of so-called agents or people that's going to be representing you in your best interest. The fact of the matter is, there's no law or rule why you got to pay these guys 1%, 2%, or 3%. In essence, we teach you that there's no value for you doing that. Only reason why I was set up that way because somebody told them that's the way to do it, and that's the problem with this. The reality is, you being an adult who don't know what it is that they actually require. If you was a father of a son, literally you're going to go off what somebody told you, but not actually factual business information. Hence, this is why it's the way it is now. So when you say about their arrest, the reason why their arrest took place because, like I said again, schools get federal money. So when federal money changes hands to go to somebody else, which is not taxed and not being accounted for, then again, it's no different than taking money and going and getting a prostitute. You are soliciting children, in essence, to provide a service that don't benefit you but benefits them. And that's the problem. So reality is, like I said, the tip of the iceberg. I don't think I'm going to break any news tonight, but I could, and that's the point. Because the reality is that this is what the whole thing is. NCAA has been in a situation where, they say they got all these rules in place. You never heard of a player losing his eligibility for taking impermissible benefits, but yet that's the one thing they always try to scare the kids with. Well, if you take money, you're gonna lose your eligibility. Well, how that's gonna happen when all the coaches that's involved are making sure they're eligible in universities?
Yes, a good point. That's a very good point. Yes.
It can't happen.
I've been reading today. No, go ahead.
No, it can't happen. So once again, what you watch on TV and what you hear is basically a scare tactic because for the young, unimpressionable, and uninformed, you believe like, okay, well, now they told me I got to pay this agent, but there's no law for that. They tell me I got to stay in school 4 years. No, you don't. Everybody that wants you to make a decision in regarding the business that you're in are usually trying to have you do it because it's in their best interest but not yours. You never really sat back to figure out what's your best interest because there's no resource. Well, I shouldn't say that because Pre-PostGame is that exact resource for you to educate you and empower and protect you in that. But the reality is those that's in this business see you as a profit margin. So, again, all these different Power 5 schools, if you will, the same kids right now, the same 32 kids that are going to be drafted in this upcoming draft, an NFL draft, those kids have already been identified. It doesn't matter if they sign with Rock Nation, CAA, anybody else. If they told you otherwise, that's a bold-faced lie. It's the same way when it comes to the NBA lottery picks. So why would you sit back and wait till 4 months to start to understand really the business that you worked your whole life to get to? You mean as of today, LeVar Ball just took out his other son from school. I don't necessarily agree with what he do or what he don't do, but I understand the fact that literally if his son is making a decision that he wants to play basketball for a living, in the essence, if you go to college, you're supposed to go to college to basically get an education, if you will, and put yourself in a better situation financially and a way of life, for your quality life for yourself. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's the way. That's where it was back in the day, and I still believe in that system.
Well, if that's the case, then you can't really tell a kid that literally it's in his best interest, and, in regarding to college. If you play a collision sport where the average career is 2.6 years, why would you basically take a chance on getting hurt? Say, for example, you're not covered in insurance. If you say, for example, let's take Saquon Barkley from Penn State. If Saquon Barkley is thinking about business right now, how short-lived career football is, and how the NFL devalues the running back position, Saquon Barkley can never pay another down right now for Penn State. He'll still be drafted in the top 5. That's a fact. Now, Penn State won't like that. The fans won't like that. But God forbid something happens to Saquon Barkley, he never plays again, then what? Oh, this is what they say, the next man up. So you go from team to the kid get hurt, injured, just like DeAndre Francois from Florida State, who was a Heisman Trophy candidate. Now he gets hurt, next man up, he's forgotten. Dalvin Cook yesterday for the Minnesota Vikings. Less than 5 minutes later, he tears his ACL. Next man up. But Dalvin Cook was drafted in the second round. So Dalvin Cook was drafted in the second round. Does Dalvin Cook know that because he's a second-round pick now, because he got hurt, that only 2 years of his 3-year contract is guaranteed? I'm sure he don't. The agent is supposed to tell him that, but likely that didn't happen. So like I said, there's so much involved in regarding these young men by how making the proper business decision that, like I said, when you peel back the layer of what sports business really is, at the earliest stages, no matter what. In Texas, they got a $60 million stadium. They got a $70 million stadium. If you just paid $5 a person to go into that stadium every Friday night, in excess of 78,000 people, plus programs and hot dogs and flyers and beer or whatever else may be, the players aren't getting any kick. So, like I said, you make it too easy for people to say, you know what? All I gotta do is befriend this kid. This kid don't have anything. He don't even have proper shoes. Then they want to say they're a mentor. He buys some shoes. Then the kid opens up to you. Oh, thank you, sir. Then for the rest of his life, financially, he's being directed one way or the other. And signing the documents he didn't read because he trusts that person. He's turned over power of attorney. And again, we talk about the parents once again. There's no resource that's being told to these parents literally, you know what? You need to understand this is in your best interest. If there was, no athlete would ever pay any percent to a representation based off the way sports is set up today when we talk about slotted salaries.
Wow. I mean, this is deep. I was reading recently the situation with Jay Williams, former player for Duke. He worked for an agency at the time donated $250,000 to Kevin Love's AAU coach, Pat Garrett, for the same purpose things for what you were saying, and in terms of representing Kevin Love and the school that he went to, UCLA, and this all happened after Jay Williams left, and he was there from 2007 to 2009. So he gave he talked about this in full, what goes on, even when this was going on when he was with the agency. And
absolutely,
that was crazy when I read that. Yeah.
Well, this is what happened.
Which was.
This is what happened. So Jay Williams, and again, former athletes are sometimes the biggest culprit in all of this because, again, a lot of these younger men, these are their peers, they're their idols, they're who they recognize. So literally, when you're a former player and things don't go your way, you figure out how can I make a quick buck, and the easiest way is going back to your alumni, if you will, and positioning yourself to say, hey, yeah, you know what? I was in the NBA. This is where you want to go. So you want to go to where I've been. This is how you do it. And there's a monetary value for that. So once again, $250 may seem like a lot, but once again, it's not. When we talk about basketball, shoe deals, revenue from merchandise, intellectual property sales, all the things that go involved in it, it's a situation where, like I said, the athlete now becomes numb to what they talk about the process. The process, essentially, we talk about the trust, is to trust somebody that tells you to do something because I told you to do it. Don't ask me any questions. Don't ask me why I'm taking this needle to my butt to run and play, even though I can't feel my leg when the game is over. Don't ask. Don't ask me why you told me I'm gonna be on scholarship but yet when I need pens and paper, my scholarship don't cover that. Don't ask. Just trust the process. So, as you know, I'm very passionate, but I'm also very smart and understand the business that goes into this. And why I created this business was to actually fight this exact situation. Because, like I said, the athlete is the most influential person in the entire sports industry. And for so long, they have never realized that and understand that. But right now, with things that is going on, in particular, like with the FBI and, you know, the NCAA, these things hopefully sooner than later will basically come to light and people will start basically understanding what's what and then basically investing in themselves and not the industry per se.
Also, now, we're speaking about Adidas. Recently, the FBI had Nike's Elite Youth Basketball League under investigation for the same kind of thing, channeling money for their traveling teams. I don't know what has come about that yet, but I can't see Nike getting involved in this. They have way too much. They are $1 billion business. I can't see them really taking that chance and really tarnish on their brand.
Really? Well, let me ask you this question. How do you think Nike became $1 billion business? But before you answer that question, let me say this. Whatever Nike athlete there is, whether it's LeBron James, when he was back in Cleveland as a young kid and they would name him the king. When they did the McDonald's commercial, when it was Kobe versus LeBron, and the little Dez $1 billion commercial, LeBron couldn't win. And then all of a sudden, you know, Chris Paul signed the contract with the Lakers and the NBA said, no, he can't go there. But then LeBron would take his talents to such and such. The reality is this. In order for Nike or any other shoe apparel company to be successful, they have to get the player that's easily recognizable to everybody else. And at the same time, when do they get them? You're not going to get them when they become 19 and 20 years old. So once again, when you think that Nike is any different than anybody else or they're the only ones under investigation, I'm going to tell you this is what I know in this business and being in this business. They all under investigation, all do the same thing. The reality is they use the term arms race to get the actual player.
Mm-hmm.
So if you talk
we're
about
talking also, let's say Reebok. You're also talking about Reebok and Pumas or any of those kind of sneaker companies. They all could fall into the same category, and they could also be investigated as well.
But this is how it works. So once again, they are big brands, so they necessarily wouldn't put their company or their actual people on this. That's what these runners come in at. These assistant coaches, these guys that are running AAU programs, these guys that are running showcase programs, these guys that basically come around and all of a sudden they want to be the friend of the family. They all of a sudden want to take pictures with your kids all the time. Literally, they're going to be the ones that basically introduce you to those so-called sneaker companies, things like that. So a lot of times, like I said, the kid don't know the wiser. So in essence, when it comes to you know fair marketplace and in real business, that's not a crime. The only crime is that because you're taking money from, in particular, the school, which is a state-funded school a lot of times, and then using that money to coerce children, that's where the criminal activity comes in. If there wasn't an NCAA model where, again, it's basically, you know, free market trade, once again, the kids can do whatever they want to do, but, again, that benefits them. And that's where our biggest proponent, our biggest voice is like, you know what, this business of sport is so big that the families, regardless if the kid makes it and plays 10 years in the league or 1 year in the league, if at any time that he's basically bringing value to a university, a school, institution, or team, he should be compensated for it for what he's done. Because without him, none of this stuff exists. And so literally, when they talk about the education piece in college, it's a joke because literally there's not a player, and I can say this, I had this conversation with many, many highly rated athletes in college, NCAA, parents. Have you ever enjoyed the process of what goes into NCAA? And to a man and a woman, they all said no. But the reality is they don't feel comfortable speaking up because literally, once again, the majority rules and the majority wins. And in this case, it's where the money is. So a lot of times the parents don't want to, rock the boat in fear that, it'd be retaliation from the coach or from the team, from the school, from somebody else. Hence why, like I said, as the player's rep, when we talk about the term sources, I am the source. So anybody has an issue about what I'm saying, I'm not going to have to put a person per se out there. But every athlete that's listening to this radio show right now will know exactly what I'm talking about. So case in point, if your parent is not in your recruiting trip at any highly rated school, and I'll put, like I said, my reputation on this, your recruiting trip consists of alcohol, drugs, and females, if not all of the above.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about institution of higher learning, you're talking about coercing, you're talking about solicitation, you're talking about manipulation of a young man's thought process of why I'm attending the school. Every single one of them, including myself, so again, have went through that process. So the moment I get there, it's, Lice campus, which I'm not going to see anyway, because once the season starts, I don't see the campus. I see the weight room, the football field, the training table, and repeat. A classroom every now and again. And then it's back to the same old, same old. I need to go there. I'm going to have the time of my life. The coach is going to tell me how much he loves me, and he can't wait for me to get there. And then once I get there, I barely see that coach. I might see my position coach. That's who I'm going to be around. I might have to schedule a meeting with that head coach. But none of this stuff is actually spoken about or talked to about when the parents are going through this. That's why we started the Pre-PostGame Sports Business Academy, for every single step that you're going to go through. Because the reality is a lot of parents in particular, or even athletes for that standpoint, feel betrayed, feel abused, feel less than who they are when they originally got there. They feel like, now they're just a number. And the reality is they are just a number because it's a business. So I don't want to baby the fact that these young men and women can't do what they got to do on the college football field or a basketball court or a volleyball court. What I'm saying is there needs to be a fair opportunity based off education, a fair opportunity based on being empowered to do what's best for them and them alone, and not have somebody else try to push them in a certain direction because they don't realize the direction they're getting pushed in is benefiting someone else.
Mm-hmm. Now, Rick Pitino was fired last week, or how they put it, administration leave. Now, we all know what that means. You're fired.
Right. Correct.
And with his list of issues from the past, dealing with this and his own issues with an affair with another woman and all this kind of stuff, I knew right then, once Louisville's name came up, that, okay, this is the end of the road for him. This is very damaging to him in terms of what is his future like at this point? Chances are, knowing with his record of two-time national champion, he's taken 3 different schools to the Final Four, but still, with his record, would this be enough for him to get another coaching job in a major Division I school?
Let's be factual about all this, and I don't mean to correct you, but as the player's rep, this is my job, literally, so that's why I said I always fact-check everything. He got 2 schools to the Final Four. The reason why I mentioned that is because the reality is one of those Final Fours were actually vacated, 2013 National Championship. But the fact is that you remember that, it goes to show the point that even though the NCAA pulled the championship way, no different than they did with USC versus Texas back then, the reality is once you watch it in your head as a fan, that's what you remember. So the fact is when they fired him, if you will, administrative leave, Louisville saying that they only owe him $12,000, Pitino saying they owe him $44 million. Hence my point is that Rick Pitino has made so much money. He's 70-plus years old at this point. He don't need to coach anywhere else. So whether people want to recognize him for being a cheat or a crook, whatever, the bottom line is in the sports industry, his job was to basically put a winner out there on that court for those fans during that time that brought that money to come in and see those teams yell, scream. Not one of them, and it's unfortunate, it'll be the players that'll basically be looked at as doing something wrong before he will. That's how the sports industry always rewrites itself. They will put the coach in a situation where, he's great, he's wonderful. Well, at the end of the day, if Pitino was caught cheating and buying players, if you will, and doing certain different things, then does his record still stand to be great if he did that and bought all the regular players? Or you can look next door to John Calipari. So my point is that whatever you want to try to justify the situation regarding the fan and regarding the coaches, how I look at it from their perspective, I don't really see that it matters to them outside of your ego saying that I want my legacy to be what it is. Right now, Pete Rose is in the Hall of Fame. People saying he should be there. The baseball players, Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds. But when it comes to the monetary value these men receive playing, and you say, well, why did you take steroids? Well, a lot of them made another $185 million doing that. Now, do you think they basically value their reputation over the $185 million? If you do, you don't know the sports business. And that's why I said, again, at the end of the day, you got to make the business decision that's best for you, because the reality is you can look at it, you can talk about it, you can argue. That's what fans do. That's what sports allows you to do. You're going to have your opinion. What's factual is that this man made more money than most people ever would hope to make in any profession ever. So at 70 years old, he can walk away and live the life he's been living. And at the same time, those kids that, whether they left Louisville or they got expelled, or the ones that went through the lawsuit from the girl that was in a stripper at the actual campus, they're the ones that's going to suffer, because they're the ones that lack character development. They're the ones that are not realizing that how short-lived that the sports career is, and that this is not going to actually help them. But at the same time, they wasn't able to make the monetary value as their coach was off of their work. And that's our issue.
Now, with this investigation, right now 4 schools are under investigation, but we all know that this is going to expand to pretty much all the Division I schools across the country.
Just Division I?
Should coaches in Division I, yeah.
It's more than that.
Should are you saying it's going? Are you saying it could be go to the level of Division II or even Division III?
I'm saying that every school that receives funds through the government and state that has a program that basically says they give scholarships or has players that come there, there's things there that they may never knew that were there. Now, I'm gonna again on public record out myself. The reason why the players rep is who he is. My senior year, I left a college to go to a university, Virginia University, under the pretense that I would be on a scholarship leaving from the University of Massachusetts. When I got there, the paperwork that I signed that was told to me to be signed as a scholarship, come to find out it was a loan, was not a scholarship. So I'm not the only one that actually.
So you had to pay it back.
But I'm going to talk about myself right now. Exactly. So with that being said, me being smart at that time, talking about classes, understanding that you told me as a psychology and sociology major that when I came there that you had the courses that I would be able to graduate attending those classes. But once again, once I got there, come to find out, that was not the case. But me being me, I let it be known that I would not be attending class until this was rectified the way it should be. It never was. I played the entire season, plus a post bowl game, literally. That's the last time they won a championship when I was there. And I have no issue with that saying what it is, because like I said, this is not the first time before I even started my company that I made this argument, if you will, with the NCAA. I reached out to the NCAA years ago in pertaining to this, non-responsive. So literally at this point, they're not the only ones. Whenever you send a check somewhere, if you tell a guy he's on a full scholarship and you come to find out it's only a partial scholarship, what that means, and he goes to class for half the semester, then you hit him with a bill. And that bill goes to the registrar, and the registrar all of a sudden sends it to your credit report. And then you are the one responsible for it. See, this is not nothing new. This goes on all over the country. And that's why the players rep was born. Because literally there's people running around right now that played sports at the highest level that's sitting there getting a call from the Department of Education. And there's nothing they can do about it. Because they never really figured out what to do. Call the NCAA, they don't call back. So, like I said, this thing is a lot bigger than anybody ever wanted to realize in regards to how much it goes in. But like I said, you talk about the phrase "follow the money." You talk about kids now that are literally going around AAU, traveling around the country. They barely go to high school. That's why LeVar Ball, what he did with his son, like why would he go to high school? Again, you go to high school, or you go to college now, or you go to whatever, you're not going to follow certain rules that basically prevent you from basically making money for yourself. Well, if sports is a short-lived career, and this young man feels like it's something that he wants to do, he's investing in himself, not the industry. See, the industry don't want that. It's like, oh, okay, come to Duke for a year or go to overseas and make $1 million yourself, which is in your best interest. If you play for Duke and you blow your knee out, then what? You don't get to the lottery. You get like, oh, sorry. Oh, you get the next man up call again. Next man up. Doesn't make any sense. Never has. But right now it's starting to open up where, a lot of people starting to understand from the outside world what's entailed in sports, and even from the parent standpoint, they're starting to understand that they need to do more to put themselves in a better situation, because without them and without that player, the Power 5 that you know to be the Power 5 today, it's not the Power 5. Another 16, another 5 teams Power 5. The player controls the actual narrative once they get the education and the knowledge.
Now you got coaches, prestigious coaches like Mike Krzyzewski, Roy Williams, John Calipari, Bill Self, the coach from Villanova, coaches like that. From what you're telling me, it seems like those coaches and other coaches in Division I schools have that tendency to most likely look the other way. They pretty much know, but the thing is, unless their finger is pointed directly at them, they're going to just keep going on as business as usual.
And any corporation, which I happen to be one, and you talk about, protecting your asset, which is your company, you have different layers and levels of culpability or plausible deniability, if you will. In particular, when it comes to sports, and the reality is that what little bit of money that they may be willing to dish out or lose, but in the grand scheme of things, is what it is. When you have a institutionalized system set up where the media, if you will, that covers these sports, I'll give you an example. Let's say a Mississippi coach, whether it's basketball or football, doesn't recruit a kid that's in-state, and that kid don't get recruited, but all of a sudden Alabama comes and Nick Saban says, I want that kid. That same recruiting site, 247 Sports, Scout.com, or whichever ones, that all of a sudden that kid's going to have a 5-star rating, because that those groups want to maintain a relationship with Alabama. Now, that other coach at Mississippi is now going to get fired because everybody going to scream, how you losing to Alabama? Well, he's going to say he wasn't that good. But the reality is it doesn't matter. So now what you got to do, even if you're a good coach in this scenario, if they say if you're not cheating, you're not trying. So what my goal is and my hope is, like I said, to even the playing field. There's a lot of coaches, a lot of good men out there, a lot of good people in the industry will help these athletes. But they also know what's going on. But in fear of being, whistleblower, pariah, because there's more of those versus them, they just try to make the deal with the best they possibly can. That's why, again, pre-postgame was here. I'm the voice of the player. At some point, Mr. Manderson, what sport did you play growing up at all?
I played football. I did play basketball. I played all, like, the three major ones, baseball, football, basketball.
Well, that's my point. I represent you as well because you're a player. I didn't say when you play, how long you play, who you play for. So I'm the player's rep. So there is something out there that needs to be said or addressed in pertaining to the sports and the business of sports on behalf of the player. That's what we're here to do. And so literally, again, bringing awareness but also bringing solutions because, again, complaining about something without a solution makes no sense. For example, for all these young men that are going to the NCAA and making all this money for the NCAA, they don't want to pay them. Well, they could create an escrow account for them. They could create interest based on the revenue they bring in through whether it's the tournament, the bowl game, whether it's the actual, ticket sales or the jersey sales. So for those young men that basically spent their time committed to the university and sacrificed their time, they can put money into the escrow account. So because we know the degrees that they want, they came to school and wanted to be a doctor. It's not going to happen. They tell you that it's going to happen, and they're lying to you because their schedule that you take is not going to allow you to be able to do that at that level. So maybe when you finish now, that money can come out, and now if you can get you a chance to go and start your life correctly, maybe go back to school and take some classes to really understand what you want to be. Maybe go and be able to start and, buy a home or do certain things, a certain way. That's how much money is being made. So there's many solutions that I can provide, and we can provide, help the NCAA or the powers that be understand what they can do is better for the players. But if you did that, you're taking money out of the other people's mouths that literally just say, hey, that's my guy. No, that's not. He's a human being. He's a grown man or woman. They're a professional. You work for them. They don't work for you. And that's the mindset that we have to start early from this point forward. And then once that happens, then the rules will change.
Now, should we?
Oh, you know the NCAA is a 501c3, right? I'm sorry. You know that? The NCAA is a 501c3. The NCAA is a 501c3.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
And the NFL was a 501c3 too, to 2014. Believe it or not. So 501c3s that make billions of dollars and receive tax breaks, cuts, and federal aid and funding. But yet there was kids like Shabazz out at UConn that said he was hungry at night and couldn't eat when they won a championship.
Wow.
It has to change. And they got to change now.
Let me ask you this, and this is a question. This has been a subject that people have been talking about, a major question. Should the student athletes now, should they be paid?
Absolutely.
You strongly believe that?
Absolutely. You said student athlete. What makes them a student athlete?
Well,
people say that term all the time, but do they know what actually going in place?
Well, you're right about that. You're the proper term, student athlete, but we all know a lot of them they don't go to class. Their purpose,
they don't go to class.
The purpose of going to
the classes that they are put in, they can so when they finish, they can end up working at Lowe's or Rent-A-Center or being a bouncer somewhere or whatever. They could have got that. They could have got that job without going to class, going to school. That's the facts.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right.
That's the facts.
That's true.
So they should be paid because literally, if you pay them, now they allow them to do certain things that benefits them, and that's the point. Because without them, there is no you, meaning university. They build half of your program. They build half of your towns. Some of these schools, they don't have pro teams like West Virginia or Knoxville. You know how much money that they bring in and generate through that scenario? So to say the fact that they talk about they shouldn't get paid because they get an education or books, the same books that literally like every other student sells back to somebody else, they can't. They don't know when they sign up to go to a school they're not going to see their family maybe once a year. They don't understand that. So literally, absolutely, they should be paid because, again, the money that whether it's, like I said, you could do it with an escrow account where you can have it sit there and it can accrue and it create interest when they no longer play, they get a check. Absolutely, they should. Or if you pay them, like I said, right now they have what you call cost of attendance stipends that vary from different schools that basically try to mitigate or offset some of the costs, if you will. But again, you talk about student athlete. What does a scholarship entail? There's a lot of questions nobody asks. Just like I said, if you went to a recruiting trip and I say, well, my dad's not here, so Mr. Such and Such, what would my recruiting trip entail? Nobody going to ask those questions. But yet when a kid gets to the pros and all of a sudden they say that he's been through some domestic violence or some girl said he did something, where was the character development? Where was the university where they try to put this kid in a room in a co-ed dorm when they know he's a top 5 rated kid? So the bathroom is in the middle of the hallway and the wind blows in the middle of the night and he's out there and all somebody got to say is that he touched me. You're setting this kid up to fail. And then you're pushing him out the ledge and say, oh, we disappointed. No, you shouldn't be disappointed because you didn't do your job. These parents turned these kids over to you to help develop and grow them to mature at the people they're supposed to be. But the reality is their entire focus and only focus is to basically win those games, sell tickets, and recruit. Repeat. And the ones that fall by the wayside.
Making money off the athletes. They're making money off the athletes. Plain and simple.
That's it. Next man up.
Yeah.
Next man up. That's the sports business. So, yes, to answer your question, without a doubt, they should be getting paid. And but because of what's going on with the NCAA and the FBI now, I don't see. I see there's only a matter of time for that to happen. Because once the everything is peeled back, and I'm sure I'm gonna do some more shows, and I might be on TV, and I might just keep opening it up a little bit more. And
let me ask you
when
this,
I do,
what?
Yeah. I'm listening. I'm sorry.
No. The question I was going to ask you then, in terms of you strongly believe that the athletes should be paid. What kind of money per athlete are we talking about here? What would be a good amount of money for them to be paid, and would this be for each year that they play for the school? Or would you pay it in one lump sum?
Right, let's look at this model. So right now, like I said, every men's basketball player at University of Louisville brings in $1.4 million per year to the university, to 13 guys. 13 guys bring in $1.4 million. So regardless of they're making that money,
right,
at minimum, they should get a quarter of that, period, per year. Now, what they do with it, they want to stay in school or not, that's their choice. So the bottom line, the supply and demand is there. They are bringing that to you, so you, as the employer, or employer, which you are, should be compensating your employee, which essentially they are, and that's the point. So, but if you go to football where there's a lot more players, the reality is this. The two deep, if you will, which is the top, the two deep is the 22 and then another 22, the second team, which is 44. Most college teams have about 110 guys on the field, or, like I said, 110 players on a team. But the reality is we know that the two deep are the ones that pretty much generate the revenue that comes into the program. So, again, you can knock that down, if you will, but based off of what they bring in that year, you can basically pay them at a level where this is a job. And when their career is up at that school, they should be well off compared to what they were. But the reality is this as well. The Big Ten commissioner, last year, Jim Delaney, received a $20 million bonus. Last week, Michigan played Purdue. Wilton Speight hurt his shoulder. He hurt his shoulder. Purdue did not have an X-ray machine. The man had to go 5 blocks to get an X-ray machine. And on top of that, the visiting locker room did not have air conditioning. So once again, you're talking about 60,000 people in that stadium, ticket sales, merchandise, alcohol, repeat. You got kids that are out there putting their lives and their bodies on the line, and you can't even provide them with air conditioning and an X-ray machine. It's deplorable at the highest level. It's hypocrisy at the highest level. At the same time, you gave the commissioner $20 million to do what? $20 million. Based off what those kids in the Big Ten are doing. Now, again, that's last year's Big Ten team. How many of those players that were seniors or juniors or guys that got hurt last year is no longer playing? Anybody doing some research to figure out what they're doing in life right now? How that education that worked out for them at the schools they went to, that degree that they did or didn't get? No, they're not. But I know, because a lot of times they call me and call our company and ask for help in transition and succession planning. What I'm going to do now? Who am I when I'm not playing football or basketball? I have no idea. My agent don't take my phone calls anymore.
Oh, wow.
This is it. That's, again, the term that we phrase. That's what sports trafficking is. It's sports trafficking, and that's where, like I said again, if nobody is going to speak on behalf of the players, it's like no different than human trafficking and sex trafficking. It will continue to happen. But why is it that it's so hard to do that? Because once again, you're talking about children or young people that don't have an ability to protect themselves. And the ones that they believe would trust to protect them are using and abusing them.
What was I going to say? Being that, again, when you're talking about athletes being paid, what will now become of, if that was the case, what would be the future of scholarships? Will there be any scholarships at all? Or will the idea of a scholarship be eliminated?
It shouldn't be a scholarship. The scholarship should be paid to the athlete.
Okay.
Once again, you're talking about what is entailed into the real essence of a scholarship. So I asked you that question. Do you know what a scholarship entails, Mr. Manderson?
Well, let's put it this way: it takes a lot of the financial pressure off the parents. For one thing.
Financial pressure, though. What are they actually getting from the financial pressure? The player, as you will. Room and board?
That is a good question.
Books?
Room and board, meal.
The food
books.
That's already there. Half of that stuff is given to the schools already. It's like the uniforms. The uniforms that they wear, that they resell, they paid to have them on their backs for those kids to wear. So, like I said, what burden is the NCAA bearing by making money off the athlete? Like I said, those books that they get, that the kids have, the athletes have, they got to give those back. And guess what happens? The school resells those same books to somebody else or give them to the next athlete. They're not incurring costs. They run these kids through the same process year in and year out. And so, like I said, when Clemson or these other schools want to spend $55 million on slides and indoor and outdoor nap rooms and bowling alleys indoor, that goes to show you once again, what these athletes don't understand is that when you're a 19 and 20-year-old man in the United States of America, in particular African-American, if your focus is a nap room and a slide, you got bigger issues than you know. The university is actually perpetuating that as something that is to draw you there. Is again hypocrisy at the finest level. He can't nap. There's no napping in college football at the high level. They work you. You signing autographs. You going to practice. You going to trips. You doing this. You doing that. None of the things that they really want to do, but guess what? They use that term again. Team. Do it for the team. So once again, you start to think that way. Then when it's all said and done, you think about that slide you was going down and you don't got a job. You wish they took that $55 million and didn't get that slide or that ping pong table that you was playing when you came on your recruiting trip before you start drinking. You might want to rethink that.
Who is the biggest loser out of all of this? Who's the biggest loser in this situation?
Honestly, being fair and equal to all, which is what I'm always about no matter what I do, I think as a fan, I have a quote when I say it's entertainment to trillions, but a way of life to thousands. A lot of fans want to get behind their team, believe in pride. They want to argue about certain things and over the water cooler, and they take pride in watching their guys. They spend a lot of their money, whether they buy season tickets and do certain things, and they always want to believe that their program is better than somebody else based off of they just that good. So, when you find out how much of a business in particular, you see all the protests going on in the NFL, things like that. People complain about, well, we don't want to watch this. We want to watch our team, and it keeps this politics out of sport. If you understand how much money is involved in sports and how much sports basically creates things, for example, those stadiums, who built those stadiums? Construction workers, the vendors, the people that the parking tickets, the cops that get overtime. The athlete in the sport basically put so much responsible for what goes on that the fan now forgets that without those players, your what you call your time away from reality goes away. So now you go to the college level, what's going on, you really realize, like, look, people don't want to think that people are bad. They want to believe in the good things. That's what sports is supposed to be about. And I talk to a lot of parents, and a lot of times they want the fantasy land for their kids and their loved ones. And I understand that. But I've been through that process myself. I made decisions based off the fantasy about what really is and what it really isn't. And then it became a nightmare for the athlete and that family. So, like I said, again, it's better to be, like I said, I talk about the phrase of having integrity with transparency and be consistent. If you talk about the sports business and you really ask questions about what goes into sports, and people do not know because that's how it was set up. They want you to cheer, yell, scream, whatever. But whatever you do, this includes the athlete, don't think. Don't do that. Because if you do, start putting it together, you'll be like, man, well, why am I doing this and why am I doing that? The reality is, again, you look at the NBA. Every series now is a 7-game series. when that happened.
Mm-hmm.
It happened when TV and marketing started becoming better. So you could be the 7th round seed or 8th seed, and all of a sudden now they're getting to 7 games. That stuff is paid for. So you jumping up and down, I can tell you what's going to happen before it actually happens. That's why I can't be a fan of sports. Because I see what's happening in the business all day long. The NBA Finals, LeBron James, Cleveland Cavaliers, the Golden State. If Golden State won Game 4, that would have cost them $22 million. They're happy to lose Game 4 to get back to Game 5 to sell the tickets and the jerseys and everything else again, to build the infrastructure downtown for the restaurants and the bars. Same thing with Cleveland. If Cleveland lost that game, they'd have lost out. Everybody went home. So the revenue that sports generate is a lot bigger than anybody ever want to think about. And so those people that's in this business with these athletes, they will do whatever and however to gain their trust, to gain them to do what they want them to do, and basically believe that they got their best interests in mind.
What is the future of NCAA collegiate sports pending this investigation? Will there be NCAA after all this is done, is said and done? What do you see the future of collegiate sports as we see it now?
In my honest opinion, when this investigation is done, and it's not going to be done for years, because like I said, what you see on the outside, a lot of people already in the industry, and a lot of people haven't been willing to talk about this because literally they probably got something to lose. But the fact of the matter is that once you start looking at all these different areas of how this thing worked from top to bottom, even when it comes down to the pre-high school era in years and the AAUs and the showcases, that all of these people that are doing things and working with these kids, they're going to start to basically figure out, you know what, I don't want this to be me. So I don't see the NCAA, and talking about collegiate sports, people talk about all the time about how the NFL isn't doing right by their quarterbacks. They don't want to do certain things pertaining to development. And I'll say this because, again, I got experience in this, and it's a standpoint where what I know about the NFL is they don't want to share the light with anybody. Meaning, there was NFL Europe. There was arena football. Actually, arena football back in the day on TNN had 25 teams. It was thriving all over the country. It was a niche sport. People loved it. The moment that Jerry Jones got involved, Ron Jaworski, John Elway, Tom Benson from the Voodoo, and Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, in a matter of a year, that whole thing collapsed. You think Jerry Jones wants people spending money on the Dallas Desperados merchandise versus the Cowboys? Or you think the Broncos want you to buy Colorado Crush gear versus the Broncos? So once again, even that scenario, owners on owner crime. I never heard that before, but owner on owner crime. The fact of the matter is that NCAA has been a great conduit, if you will, feeder system for the NFL without the NFL having to do anything to pay any money for it. But the reality is, sooner than later, those players are going to get paid, and they're going to get paid by either by the university or they're going to get paid by the NFL. One or the other is going to happen. But at the same time, that's what they didn't want to have happen. They like the fact that they can get a marketing key from a player that, for example, is a 16 or 17-year-old and end up on TV every day of the week up to a certain point. Everybody knows his name. In 3 years from now, you could draft him and sell all his money through the licensing agreement you created through your program. But you didn't invest in him at all the entire time. You didn't have to. So the fact is, now when you pay these players might say, you know what, I played 3 or 4 years. I know this concussion stuff. I don't want to have my bell rung. I'm done. I might be the best thing smoking, but I'm living my life. And I'm a big proponent of that. Athletes are humans too. They have rights. They have feelings. They have hearts. And, again, I had a parent the other day, and I had to watch her on social media so upset because the fans are calling us on all types of derogatory names. The fact of the matter of the fact is that the kid won the game, but yet these people who don't know this kid, don't know he has a family, a sister, a brother, a mother, don't care less. Call him every name under the sun. He ain't worth this. He's not that. It broke her heart. But at the same time, I told her before, this is a business. You got to look at it as such. You can't take it personal. Because you start taking what's happening to you personally in this business, you're going to be disappointed by a lot of people. A lot of people are going to disappoint you if you take it personal. Because if you start to think it's about you and his love and his care, you're in the wrong industry. You really are.
Are the sports networks that carry the college games, will they be affected in any way, or is business as usual?
It depends on, in my opinion, how you cover it. You know, the ones recently, you know, they kind of try to stay away from it. It came out when it came out. You know, Jason Williams said what he said. I'm kind of curious to see how that works out for him. But the reality is he probably said what he said because it's better to say it now before somebody comes and pull back that curtain and see what he was doing. So it's better to get in front than get caught in the back end. I think a lot of people now trying to figure out what they're actually doing. Like, you know, how I'm going to navigate this. Like, did I cross all my T's and dot all my I's? Am I next? A lot of former players, a lot of current coaches right now probably calling a lot of their parents and asking them, how you doing? Is everything okay? And I'm not just talking basketball. Like, you know, all of a sudden the coach will call you since you signed that letter. But now they're wondering if you, the next one, will basically put them under blast based on what you didn't do or did
exactly.
So there's a lot of uneasy people in the sports industry right now. So from the network standpoint, I believe they're going to cover it as it comes. To try to seem, you know, like impartial in it all, even though really nobody's impartial when it comes to most of these things. The ones that say that they don't have any idea, don't understand what's going on, they're oblivious to this. I mean, I'm just going to be frank, that's a bold-faced lie. Like for me and what I know, and I like to think that I'm educated and I'm empowering people and I'm protecting them. So if I was to sit down and have a conversation about, say I was working representing you, Mr. Manderson, in the sports industry, whether it's through another sports journalist, media production scenario, or even if you was an athlete. If I was to sit down with a coach, no matter what school, at level, I probably would become across their biggest nightmare. Simply because if things that are what they are, you know, actually come to light and pertaining to their programs, that's something that they're not prepared for in more cases than not. That's why, again, when the FBI gets involved, there's no more, the NCAA is going to ban Rick Pitino for playing the first 5 games. We're going to strip him from the championship. We're going to strip USC. But like you said before, you remember them winning the championship. You can't take that memory away.
Yeah.
So it's not on the paper.
Right.
Great. At the end of the day, he still made those millions. Alex Rodriguez made $480 million in his career playing baseball. Everybody said, he took the steroids. I would never forgive you. I think he'll get over it. That's why I said, I think he hurts the most is the fans. Because the guys that are trying to stay in the league as long as they possibly can, know how the industry is set up to get rid of them. What do you want them to do? So that's the whole point. So sports is not going anywhere. It's the fabric of this country, to be honest with you, for a long, long, long time. But the business model of it is broken. It's been broken and pertaining to basically protecting, empowering, basically giving the players their just due. Because without them, this won't exist. There won't be no such thing as these, super coaches if they wasn't getting the super players. The facts. It wouldn't happen. So, you know, what you do as a player and where you go, if I'm a 5-star recruit, why would I go somewhere where I'm going to sit behind another 5-star recruit and have somebody manipulate my thought process and talk about, don't be afraid of competition. If my goal is to play on a Sunday or a Saturday, competition has nothing to do with it. Being afraid has nothing to do with it. It's sound business principles. Where's your best opportunity for you? So once again, it's the mind frame that's being sold and used against young kids. So you can't ever, again, and why pre-postgame is where it is and why we're here, is we're simply going to say that it is impossible, Mr. Manderson, for any 16, and this is with all due respect, any 16 and 19-year-olds to ever, and their parent, to ever deal in a business situation with themselves with somebody that's 29 to 60 years old in sports business. It is impossible. Whether you believe you can or not, that's fine. But I'm telling you as a professional, you can't win. You can run around, they can roll out the red carpet, they can make you feel like king and queen. That's part of the plan. To lead you where they want you to go. But you cannot operate in a business the way it's currently constituted in 2017 and think you're going to know what you need to know for your best interest. It's impossible. Absolutely.
Mm. Well, my final questions before I let you go, and I thank you very much for coming on, especially you being under the weather. But this is a very serious topic that I felt needed to be addressed. With the firing of Rick Pitino, should we expect more firings of coaches on the level of Rick Pitino?
Well, this is the thing. Is now you have coaches, and again, I talk about the business level. So the players, their own business entity, coaches are their own business entity, the university is their own business entity, and the NCAA is their own business entity. Right now, all of the above are fighting in the race to basically beat the FBI to the punch before they get caught, if you will. So the answer would be yes, simply because some universities feel like their coach might be what they're doing. So what will happen is just like when the NCAA or is about to drop something down, they'll make a little phone call, and the school will say, "Hey, we're gonna put ourselves on self-probation. We're gonna ban ourselves from a bowl game from a year." All that hurts is the kid. It don't hurt anybody else. So literally at this point, I can see some universities saying, "You know what? We know some things. We don't want to take the hit for this. Hey, coach, you gonna resign, or we're going to fire you, or the player's going to actually leave, or they're going to out the coach that did whatever." It's going to be everybody going to be fending for themselves. So, yes, I will see this happening further. But how it happens remains to be seen.
Now, and the last question, with the events that's going on, will it seriously hamper college recruiting, or will college recruiting be business as usual, like nothing ever happened? Do you see a little more difficulty in getting high school players to play for the colleges, or as I said, nothing will change, or let's say within the next 2-3 years or so?
That's a great question. So at this point, my answer would be it depends on the player and the family. How smart they are, how educated they are, how much they know what they're trying to do. They have a plan in place. Regarding the colleges and what they're going to do is, again, it's going to be business as usual. But the fact is that literally when it comes to now with some of these kids, what they decide to do, how they decide to do it, like anything else, if they change, the model will change. The NCAA will change. Because, again, without them, that's the whole point. So, again, it all falls down to the player. One of the things that I've always said that is a big issue for me, in particular with these highly rated schools, is that they literally, when it comes to players that are, they're going to be playing in a major sport one day or another, these guys don't know the history of the sport they played in or going to play in. They don't know the guys that came before them. They don't know about the business that got to that point. They don't know who the agents are and who did what on a good or bad level. They don't. And the schools aren't prepared from that. For example, there's one group called the Cornerstone Group that's out there that is hired by the ACC and the SEC to basically do independent, if you will, quote-unquote consulting to the family of the athlete. But the reality is 99% of that advisement goes back to the agent, Jimmy Sexton, who happens to be Nick Saban's agent and a bunch of other agents for SEC schools. So it's a clear conflict of interest once again. So you're talking about the layers being pulled back. The same thing that these college coaches got fired for is going on everywhere. There should be no business decisions being made or basically directed by the NCAA or the university on the player's behalf. Zero. That includes the agent process, insurance processes, because every decision that's made in business, the NCAA is going to basically direct you, or the university will direct you to do what's best for the business that they set up that works for them, not you. That includes who you work with and why you work for them. Hence is why the FBI is now involved. So, like I said, you take that away. Again, pre-post-game, again, if you will, the Sports Business Bureau, as we like to position ourselves to be, that we're independent of everybody else. Only thing we do is on behalf of the players and their families. We have no interest to be acknowledged, to be loved by Alabama like maybe 247 Sports would. You don't want to talk to us, that's fine. We're not here for you. We're here for the player. So the reality is, That's what needs to come out of this scenario, is that business and pertaining to the athlete has to be separated for when it comes to the business of the school, the business of the coach, and the business of the league. You can't have a doctor who literally is going to be working for the NFL, but now he comes to a college program, and there's a thing called HIPAA law, and now he looks at records, medical records, of a player who's hoping to go to the NFL, acting like he won't call his buddy and say, oh, this guy got a torn meniscus or something, and then blip that out on ESPN sources right before the draft that hurts his draft stock. With the player and the parents, none the wiser. None the wiser. Yes, that happens.
Wow.
That goes on. So that's what needs to be eliminated in this process. Take the business away. Let school be school, and if it's not going to be school, let the business be the business. Let somebody else deal with these kids in their business interests, and therefore you pay them so they can get the right people to take care of their business. That's what needs to happen, in our opinion.
Wow, that is deep. That is deep, I'll tell you. On that note, Robert, I thank you very much for coming on. As I said, especially you've been under the weather, and but as I said, this is a subject that had to be addressed, and you did a great job in breaking it down. And we'll see how this goes in the coming years. I know the timing of all of this has been bad, being that the season will be starting up in a few weeks. So, but you know, this had to be done. So, hopefully, a lot of good eventually. This situation can be cleaned up. I don't know how long it'll take, but I think damage pretty much has been done over the course of years. So it's going to take that much time to clean it up. And it could be a possibility. I don't know if you agree with me on this, but certain schools in situations like this, could their sports program be shut down?
I wouldn't necessarily say shut down. They did the death penalty back in the day with SMU, and they thought about it with Miami. But the reality is that sports makes so much money to that university that, you know, end of the day, if you look and peel back and see what's going on at the level where it just don't make any sense, where you talk about if they didn't shut down Louisville for having, like I said, basically a brothel or whatever, and they're recruiting dorms, I don't know what else is. Because literally, like I said again, it's pretty much they had people there to make sure that kid had a good time, and so solicitation to get you to go to university, people go to jail for that, and they still in business.
Yeah. So
the reality is not what it is. But I know I got to go, but I just want to say really quick, I want to thank you for your time again. It's always a pleasure to come on. I always try to give the most depth, insight, perspective from everybody's perspective, from the business side, from the athlete side, and the parent side as well. And also, like I said again, we just rolled out pre-enrollment for our Sports Business Academy, and it goes through 6th grade throughout the retired pro career. So like I said, at every level, it's a digital content platform as well that you can literally, from a desktop or your actual phone, you'll be able to click on it. So for example, is that, invest in myself, not the industry, or how to utilize my social media on my platform, or like I said again, what should I ask when I'm on a recruiting visit? All those different things, you can basically go in there and get educated on it, and then you can actually do a fact check. And when you talk about interviewing coaches and compliance people and service providers and agents, right there at the tip of your hand. So the reason why we wanted to get that done is because literally we know the game that's being played against these people, and I mean the people meaning the players and the families, and we wanted to give them something that if I couldn't be there, they didn't basically or aren't able to hire us or have a consultation at that time, that they can easily access it. So if they get a chance, you can go to pre-postgame.com. That's pre-postgame.com. And for anything else that we've done and I've done specifically, I am the Players Rep. You can hashtag the Players Rep. I'm on all social media platforms at the Players Rep and the number 1. So again, I want to thank you for your time, and God bless you, sir.
Not a problem. You know you're welcome here anytime, and take care of that cold, but most importantly, continued success with Pre-PostGame Incorporated, and we will definitely talk down the road. So you take care, and God bless.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.
You too now. Source Nation, that was Robert T. Green, the CEO of Pre-PostGame Incorporated, addressing a subject that has been very serious here over the last few days, starting from last week, Tuesday, and breaking it down, the seriousness now of this particular college scandal, of which the FBI has gotten involved. They have been actually investigating this bribery and fraud situation for about a couple of years now, and it's really escalated now. They got enough evidence to make the arrest that they did make so far, and it said 4 assistant coaches, one of them former NBA player Chuck Person. They used to call him the Rifleman back in the day, and he was the assistant head coach of his alma mater, which was Auburn, and he and 3 other assistant coaches from different schools from USC, Arizona, and Oklahoma State were arrested as well, as long as people from Adidas, the product there, and who knows? This investigation is going to continue, and it may get worse before it gets any better. And it's what sports what it's like for these students. I still call them student athletes because they really, the purpose is you play sports for your school, but also you're supposed to try to get an education as well. And I've never been in favor of this one and done situation where you come in as a freshman, you do 1 year, and you think you're NBA ready. And, but the thing is, these college coaches, they're pretty much either they want to do something about it, but their hands are tied, or they pretty much are looking out for themselves, so they look the other way. As long as they get their yearly 7-figure salary, it is what it is, until it becomes a situation that Rick Pitino has just experienced. He is no longer the head coach of the Louisville Cardinals, and people will think, oh well, with his track record as a coach, he'll get another job. It may not be that simple this time around, with the kind of baggage that he had before this court service that he knew about, the extramarital affair with this woman that went public, and all the things, all his baggage. This just adds on to it, and so you never know. As great a coach as he is, these schools really don't want that kind of media circus if they were to hire him for their program. And as Robert had said before, there may be other firings of coaches that are on the level of Pitino, championship type coaches. I'm telling you, one coach that I'm thinking about right now that I may want to keep an eye on is Jim Boeheim. He has carried some baggage with him in the decades of service at Syracuse, and so I'm really interested to see if his name pops up, or even John Calipari. And the Mike Krzyzewski. Okay, Calipari and Krzyzewski in particular, because those two have now resorted to the one and done situation, where years past with especially Krzyzewski, it was imperative that you do your 4 years. Now it's a situation as it is what it is. They have great recruiting abilities, which is the reason why they could pretty much deal with this situation. They can get players to play for them from all over the country. So it is what it is. It's a tough situation, and and a lot of times who gets hurt the most are the athletes. The bottom line. And I've always said these parents got to get more involved in the decision making of their son's future in sports, and because they too they can suffer as well. And so we will see how this situation develops, and how long will this take to resolve. And the corruption is way too deep, so it's going to take a while. So we'll see what happens, and what the FBI will come up with in the coming months is going to be. This is going to be an interesting 2017-2018 basketball season in college basketball. So, we'll see what happens. And as I said, it's going to get, in my opinion, it's going to get worse before it even gets better. So we'll see. But my thanks to Robert T. Green. Terrific job, great insight on this situation. And for those who listened in tonight, I hope you got a good insight. I hope you were well informed and well educated on this subject. I know I was. So we'll see. Well, that's it for me. And I was going to get into a little football, but you know what? This subject was too deep. So we'll have to touch base on that next week. So that is it for me. Again, want to thank Robert for coming on. His website, check it out, www.pre-postgame.com. Check it out. And also want to thank Rich Mancuso in the first hour, sports journalist for the Mets, talking about the 2017 Mets season in review. And always glad to have both Rich and Robert on the show, and both of them are welcome anytime. All right, that is it for me. And until next week, like I always say, Source Nation, be good and be safe. Take care, everybody.
Get at me for beats, yo.